Okay, so you want to talk about Japan?
Always down for that.
Who isn't, right?
Yeah,
It's like everyone's got that travel bug for Japan right now.
it's definitely having a moment.
But here's the thing. When people finally get serious about booking that trip, it always seems to come down to this epic showdown, Tokyo or
It's
Osaka.
the classic dilemma.
Yeah, and you see the same old spiel everywhere, right? Towering skyscrapers versus like charming little back streets, crazy advanced tech versus those like traditional crafts.
Yeah, the typical tourist traps versus hidden gems narrative.
Exactly. But let's be real, we want to go deeper than that.
Way deeper, beyond the surface level.
Right, into the real soul of each city.
Totally.
Oh,
And that's where it gets interesting, because when we dug into all those articles and, those expat forum threads,
yeah, those are juicy.
total goldmine. And even those, like, only in Japan blog posts you sent, a totally different picture started to emerge.
Yeah, it was less about Tokyo versus Osaka.
And more about, like, finding the right city that just clicks with you, you know?
Totally. It's almost like each city has its own vibe.
Exactly, like a personality, almost. One article even called it, like, cultural DNA.
Ooh,
That it runs
absolutely.
way deeper than just geography. It's, like, in everything, right? How people interact.
Their sense of humor.
Yeah, even down to, like, how they make their ramen.
Okay, so let's break down this whole personality thing. One thing that kept popping up, especially in those expat forums, was just how ridiculously friendly Osaka is supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, that came up a lot.
Right, and I'm talking like friendly to complete strangers. People were sharing stories about neighbors, like striking up full-blown conversations in the stairwell.
Which, let's be honest,
Unheard of in Tokyo, right?
pretty much. And that difference in pace of life, it comes up a lot. Like, one expat was saying how in Osaka, biking to work is totally normal.
Right.
All in Tokyo, forget it.
It would be utter chaos.
Controlled chaos, but still chaos.
True. But about this whole friendliness thing, is it legit? Or are we just talking about like stereotypical Japanese politeness?
It seems like the real deal. Like, a lot of it goes back to Osaka's roots as a merchant city.
Ah, so it's a business thing.
Kind of. Back in the day, being able to connect with people, build relationships, that was make or break for business. So that legacy, it's like woven into how people interact, even today.
Wow, so it's like the customer is always right, but ingrained into the entire city's vibe.
Pretty much.
That's wild. Okay, but let's get into like the really specific quirky details. Because one source mentioned something about Osaka doing escalators. Get this, backwards.
Oh, yeah. The escalator thing.
Wait, hold on, seriously.
Yeah. So, like, in Tokyo and most of Eastern Japan, really you stand on the left side of the escalator, right?
Right, that's normal.
But go to Osaka or anywhere in the Kansai region, boom, you're on the right side.
So the entire city just decided to be different.
Well, there are theories. One's that whole samurai versus merchant thing again.
Oh, I like this a lot.
Like Osaka being all, we do things our way, a little dig at Tokyo. But there's a more practical theory, too.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
This one says it all goes back to the design of Osaka's Hankyu Umeda Station,
I've heard that place is insane.
one of the busiest train stations in the world. So they encourage people to stand on the right, figuring, hey, most people are right-handed.
Right.
So it'd be easier to grab the handrail,
Yeah.
just in case.
Huh. So a subtle act of rebellion.
Or just, smart urban planning.
I kind of love both answers. But speaking of doing things a little differently dialects, because those forum threads were blowing up over something called Osaka Ben.
Oh, yeah. Osaka-ben is legendary.
People were obsessed.
For good reason. It's not just an accent. It's, like, inherently playful,
Ah, so it's got that Osaka humor baked in.
Exactly. And people find it really refreshing, especially compared to how formal Japanese can be in Tokyo.
Yeah, one blogger described Osaka Ben as like pouring a shot of espresso into standard Japanese.
Love that.
Suddenly it's got that energy, that spark. And it made me wonder, do you have a favorite Osaka Ben phrase? Just to give us a taste.
Oh, for sure. Nande yanen. It cracks me up every time.
Nande yanen. What does that even mean?
It's like a way more emphatic way of saying, like, what the heck? Or, are you serious?
Ah, okay, I can see it.
It's got that perfect blend of, like, disbelief and humor. Very Osaka.
I'm telling you, I might book a flight just to hear someone say Nande yanen in person. Okay, but before I get too carried away, let's talk about how this whole personality difference actually shows up in everyday life. For example, the food scene.
Oh, here we go.
Because Tokyo, everyone knows it's a culinary paradise.
World class, for sure.
But from what I'm gathering, Osaka's got a different kind of foodie thing going on.
Totally. And it goes back to that history thing again.
Ah, okay, so spill the tea. What's the deal?
Tokyo's food scene, it's often seen as super refined, even intimidating sometimes, Michelin-starred restaurants, fancy plating.
You're speaking my language, but go on.
It's all about presentation and like pushing culinary boundaries.
Yeah.
But Osaka's different. Osaka's all about kudo.
Kudor. Is that like a secret foodie code word or something?
It literally translates to eat till you drop. And that pretty much sums up Osaka's whole food philosophy.
Okay, you had me at eat till you drop. I'm sold.
Right. It's less about the fancy stuff and more about bold flavors.
Ah, I can get behind that.
And that really communal, lively atmosphere. Think bustling street food stalls, those little family-run places that have been perfecting the same dishes for
Ow,
generations.
stop me making me hungry.
It's all about fresh, local ingredients. Real people, real food, real good time.
Okay, dangerous knowledge, for real.
Yeah.
You've officially activated every foodie sensor I have. But food coma aside, this talk about different vibes got me thinking, what about the cost of living in these cities? Because Tokyo has a certain reputation, right?
Oh, yeah. Tokyo can definitely be a budget buster,
No kidding.
especially when it comes to housing. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories.
One source actually did a side-by-side comparison of average rent for a one-bedroom in a good area. And get this, Tokyo was almost double what you'd pay in Osaka.
Double.
Double. So even if you were living off the delicious sushi, the cost of everything else can add up crazy fast.
Ouch, yeah. But why is there such a huge difference? Is it just because, well, it's Tokyo?
I mean, that's part of it, right? Tokyo being this global powerhouse.
Yeah.
But it's also just limited space
Right.
and a population density that's enough to make anyone claustrophobic.
Sure.
And that price difference, it's not just rent. It's everything. Groceries, transportation, you name it.
So it's like, sure, Tokyo might have those high-paying jobs, but you're also paying a premium just to exist there.
Exactly. And that's something that came up in those expat forums a lot. People were saying, look, you have to factor in the cost of living when you're weighing job offers, lifestyle choices, all of that.
Because earning a Tokyo-level salary doesn't mean much if you're also hemorrhaging money on rent and, like, a carton of milk, right?
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance. And honestly, that's what makes this whole Tokyo versus Osaka thing so interesting. It's way more than just sightseeing. It's about imagining your life there, your career, what your day-to-day would actually feel like.
Yeah, like which city would actually let you, live, not just survive.
Exactly.
It's crazy, right? You'd think we were talking about two different countries, not just two cities in the same country.
It's wild, isn't it? The energy is just completely different.
Yeah, and Tokyo sounds incredible, don't get me wrong.
Oh, for sure.
But all that slickness and sophistication, all that energy,
It can be a lot, yeah.
I feel like I'd burn out after, like, a week. One of the articles even used the phrase pressure cooker to describe it.
Yeah, and one expat said it's like living in the fast lane,
Oh.
even when you're just trying to buy groceries.
Oh, 100%. Like, I thrive on a certain level of hustle, but everyone needs a break, right? At some point, it's got to breathe.
Absolutely. And that's a big part of Osaka's appeal, it seems. That slower, more human pace of life.
Right, like just chilling out and actually enjoying yourself.
The sources really emphasize the focus on work-life balance there,
Mm-hmm.
which, is huge, especially for people coming from cultures where it's work, work, work all the time.
Totally. Speaking of work, we touched on cost of living, but what about the job market in each city? I mean, Tokyo's got that whole global powerhouse thing going on.
For sure, and that attracts a certain kind of job seeker.
But what about Osaka? Is it all just, like, ramen chefs and street vendors?
Okay, first of all, I would move to Osaka in a heartbeat for the food scene alone.
Who wouldn't?
But no, it's definitely not just food-related jobs. It's interesting because while Tokyo might be the go-to for like international finance and tech giants, Osaka has a really thriving scene in different sectors.
Oh, okay, so tell me more.
Think strong manufacturing industries, a growing startup scene, and honestly, a surprising number of opportunities in tourism and hospitality, given its reputation as, a foodie paradise.
Makes sense. So maybe not as many, like, Wall Street types, but still a lot of options for someone with the right skills.
Totally. And a different vibe, too.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Because even with a great job, nobody wants to feel like they're living at the office, right?
Ugh, the worst.
Yeah.
And that's another area where Tokyo and Osaka diverge. Like, Tokyo is notorious for its long work hours, the super hierarchical
She's
structure.
looking uptight.
A little, yeah, like there's this pressure to always be on,
Hmm.
Osaka, while still having a strong work ethic, seems to have held on to a more laid-back approach.
I could get behind that.
Like after-work drinks with colleagues, building relationships, that's still a big part of the culture there.
Okay, so if we're talking real talk, most of us aren't going to be jet setting between Michelin-starred restaurants and fancy offices 24/7. What about just like living in each city?
Right, like the day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. Like getting around, Tokyo's got that crazy efficient public transport.
Legendary, yeah.
But what about Osaka? Is it easy to navigate, or will I get lost trying to find my way to the ramen shop?
Okay, one thing that kept coming up in those expat forums was how surprisingly manageable Osaka is, even if you're not, like, a public transport master.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, like, the city center is pretty compact, and remember how we were talking about biking being a thing there?
Yeah, definitely a plus.
And the train system, while maybe not as expansive as Tokyo's, is still super efficient and easy to use.
That's reassuring because those Tokyo subway maps can be truly terrifying. Like, I need a degree in cartography just to understand them.
Right. But beyond just the logistics, the overall vibe is different too.
Okay, yeah, paint me a picture. Like, if you had to sum up the energy of a typical Tokyo neighborhood versus an Osaka one, what would it be?
Okay, so imagine walking through like Shibuya in Tokyo, right?
The giant scramble crossing and everything.
Exactly. And buildings covered in those massive video screens, people everywhere. Sensory overload, but in a good way, you know?
Yeah, I can see it.
But then picture yourself wandering through Dotonbori in Osaka.
With the canal and the street food.
Exactly. Neon lights reflecting off the water,
Yeah.
those street food vendors calling out, people laughing and chatting. It's electric, but in a more down-to-earth, welcoming kind of way.
Okay, I'm getting like organized chaos versus delightfully chaotic.
Perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And that extends beyond the touristy areas too. Like Tokyo neighborhoods, they often feel very distinct, you know?
Each with its own little personality.
Totally. You could be wandering through the back streets of Kagurazaka with those traditional tea houses and antique
It
shops.
sounds charming.
Super charming. And then hop on the train a few stops and be in the middle of Shinjuku with skyscrapers and that like nonstop energy.
So it's almost like a choose your own adventure in terms of neighborhood vibes. What about Osaka? Does it have that same kind of variety?
Osaka's neighborhoods tend to blend into each other a bit more seamlessly. But you still have areas with their own unique flavor.
Like what?
Well, like Namba is known for its entertainment scene, that classic Osaka energy. Then you have places like Nakazaki-cho, which is super cool. It's got all these vintage clothing stores, independent coffee shops.
Oh, my kind of place.
Right. So Tokyo might be the king of like hyper-specific neighborhood personalities.
And Osaka's more about that community vibe. Yeah, I could see it.
And it's not about saying one is better than the other. It's just about knowing what you're looking for. What kind of environment feels right for you?
Because at the end of the day, both cities are incredible in their own ways.
Absolutely. And one of the most valuable things I took away from all this research is like you have to be honest with yourself about your priorities. What are you actually looking for in a city?
Yeah, because what works for one person might be a total nightmare for someone else.
Exactly. So are you someone who thrives in that super fast-paced, constantly evolving energy of Tokyo?
Or do you need something a little more grounded, like Osaka?
And remember, both cities offer amazing opportunities for your career, for personal growth, for just experiencing all the amazing things Japan has to offer.
And that's the exciting part. It's like no matter which city you choose, you're in for an incredible adventure.
Speaking of adventures, we haven't even touched on the social side of things. Finding your people, building a life.
Especially if you're moving there long term.
Because a city can feel exciting for a visit, but feeling truly at home, it's a whole other ballgame.
It's that whole will I actually find my people thing. Because I imagine Tokyo being so international probably has a pretty diverse expat community.
Oh, for sure, massive.
But is it one of those like easy to meet people but hard to really connect situations?
That's the question, right? And our sources actually had some interesting insights on that.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So Tokyo's expat community is huge, super diverse. You've got everyone from like students and English teachers to, CEOs and artists, everyone.
The whole spectrum.
But the thing is, it can feel kind of transient, according to one article.
Transient, like people are always coming and going.
Exactly. Think about it. Tokyo attracts a lot of people who are there for like a specific job assignment.
Right, short-term contracts.
Or they're there to chase like a specific dream. And then once they've done that, they're on to the next thing.
So it's exciting, fast-paced, but not exactly the best for putting down roots.
Yeah, you might not find your like ride or die ramen buddy.
Okay, that's my new favorite phrase. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to build a life there, right?
No, not at all. Tokyo has tons of social groups, meetups, all
So
that.
you just have to put yourself out there.
Exactly. You'll find your people. It just might take a little more effort. Okay, now, Osaka's a little different.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the Osaka expat scene like?
One thing we kept seeing in those expat forums was that Osaka just feels more grounded.
Like less intense?
Yeah, more like a community, even if it's not as big as Tokyo's expat scene.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly. Remember that blogger who called Osaka Tokyo's cooler, more welcoming cousin?
So
It's
good.
that approachable vibe we talked about. It's in the expat community, too.
People were saying it was way easier to make friends, that their Japanese neighbors were super welcoming,
People felt like they were really part of something, not just passing through.
which is huge when you're in a totally new country, that feeling of belonging.
Totally. It can make or break your experience.
Okay, you've officially given me major FOMO. Both cities sound incredible, but at the end of the day, it's got to be about finding the place that fits you best, right?
100%. And like we were saying earlier, you have to be honest with yourself about what you're looking for.
What are your priorities?
Exactly. Do you thrive in that fast-paced, ever-evolving environment like Tokyo?
Or do you need something a little more like down to earth? A little more Osaka?
Because both cities have amazing things to offer no matter what you're into.
I'm telling you, this whole deep dive has been eye-opening. I feel like we
Ah,
actually understand these cities now, not just the touristy stuff.
me too. It's amazing what you can learn when you go beyond, like the top 10 lists and the guidebooks.
Right, so to everyone listening, whether you're dreaming of like Tokyo's neon lights or Osaka's street food scene, remember, the best city is the one that speaks to you, the one that makes you want to get out there and explore.
And hey, maybe you'll even find a way to experience the best of both worlds.
Now there's a thought. Until next time, everyone, happy travels.